Adam Taxin here with Bob Guzzardi, who is a Southeast Pennsylvania-based advocate for the forgotten taxpayer. He is also a blogger and grassroots activist and a conservative reformer. You can find his material on thelibertyblog.org. Today, Bob is going to discuss gun control, which is certainly the issue of the day, but he wants to discuss it in the context of how Barack Obama, while certainly wanting to take your guns, but he's also totally using this as a smokescreen. Bob, welcome.
Thank you. It's evident right after the Sandy Hook Newton shootings that gun control became a big issue, and there's no doubt that seeing 20 dead children had to freeze the heart of anybody. Immediately, the Obama administration and the leftists pivoted to gun control, and just ruthlessly and opportunistically used the sympathy you have for these parents to make a political point. But more to the point, they're using gun control as an issue to distract from the fiscal issues and from the ever-expanding power of the central government. Gun control itself is now coming out of the central government, out of the state governments. Whole issues of federalism are dissolving slowly but surely, and focusing power more and more in one central government and fewer people. The issue of gun control and the emotions that generates, which are hot and heavy if you listen to the leftist and the right-wing media, all distract away from the centralization of power and from the issues of the economy. The big issue, the giant, overwhelming issue facing this country is spending and the fact that we are in economic decline. And that economic decline is mirroring or tracking the European decline as a result of the big spending and the big debt. The debt ceiling is the next big issue. And Obama is doing everything he can to stir up his base, which consists of those people getting free stuff and government checks, and the liberal base, which are so much smarter and more knowledgeable than the rest of us. And the gun control is a big issue that is stimulating them to excesses of emotion.
Bob, let me ask you a quick question. So you agree with my premise, and I mean that they're totally genuine, but it's creating as many fights as possible, and because gun control, so-called gun control, is the most emotional topic, they can get away with whatever they want on the economy as long as people are focused on this.
Correct. They're focusing everybody's attention away from the debt ceiling, and there is no doubt that the leftists think that there's too many guns and we should be disarmed. No question about it, and with these ideas of registry and that everybody who purchases a gun has to go through a credit check means the government will know everybody in the United States who owns a gun. This is not necessarily such a good thing. And the point, though, is the real issue is the debt ceiling issue. And when we flip-flop between gun issues, abortion, right-to-life contraception, Obama picks a fight with the Catholic Church. Now he's picking a fight with the NRA. Why does he pick these fights when the major issue that we should be seriously discussing is our economics and the spending and the debt ceiling? And just yesterday, we had a preview of what I think is going to happen. The Hurricane Sandy bill was passed, and it was passed with substantial Republican support, and particularly Republican leadership support. It added, on top of the previous, I think it was a $9 billion vote, another $50 billion in additional spending with no cuts. The Republicans are voting for more spending because, the people from the Hurricane Sandy are suffering. Why this hadn't been budgeted ahead of time, I don't know. But whatever it is, we're spending money that we don't have. Even if it is a good thing, even if it's a necessary thing, we are spending money that we don't have, and increasing the debt is deferred taxation and can only devalue and devalue the currency. And this is what is happening. But while we're talking about guns and contraceptives and abortion and even Obamacare, we are now distracted from the fact that we cannot afford what we are spending on our programs. Then what happened? But I am very pessimistic because I'm seeing that the Republicans are not holding the line. Right. The Meltdown Shaolin for the last 60 years has been bigger and bigger government. No nobody has really held the line. There's been fits and starts with the 2010 when the Tea Party people got active, but it appears that that is still not strong enough to overcome this deluge of big government coming out of the Obama administration. And after November, we have to see how brilliant they are. They are brilliant in distracting the issues away from. They talked about gun control. They talked about, for the first time, talked to the low information voter. Look, on gun control, Pennsylvania has gun control, and we know where the problem is. I live in Montgomery County, which is right next to Philadelphia. Montgomery County and Philadelphia have exactly the same gun laws. The murder rate and the crime rate in Montgomery County is a fraction of that in Philadelphia with the same laws. The problem is not more laws. The problem is, A, enforcement of the laws, and the people that are getting the guns are people that shouldn't be having the guns, and under any kind of gun control would be prohibited. There are felons on the street, paroled on the street, who can get guns because there are just so many out there. There's a black market for guns like there's a black market for cigarettes. They get the guns, and the problem is the judges in Philadelphia do not enforce the gun laws as they are enforced in Montgomery County.
Right.
The issue is enforcement, but all this issue, should we have guns, and the militia, and what does the Second Amendment say or not say, and machine guns firing, and kids dying, all of this takes away from the issue that we are now centralizing more and more power in the central government, and in particularly the leftists, the socialists, the statists, whatever you want to call them. But these are state power people. They are focusing and empowering the state, and in this case, the central state, not the balance of power that the Constitution wisely, for a good reason, set up that pattern. But it's been going on for, you might say, 100 years, a
Sure.
slow creation of the idea of a decentralized government with strong state. And I am not so sure. I'm from Pennsylvania, and the more I hear about it, the more pessimistic I become. Partially because I see how good the Obama administration is, and then I see how bad the Republicans are.
Well, you've been fighting the good fight in Pennsylvania about the Rhino Republicans. Basically, the Republican Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Democratic Party here in Pennsylvania, and certainly in Philadelphia.
Well, certainly in Philadelphia it is, but what you see in the Pennsylvania Republican Party is the union issue is the key issue. This is where the Democrats are funded. This is where they have their get-out-the-vote support. This is the power of the Democratic Party, and there are many, many union Republicans. All the Bucks County Republicans are union Republicans. All the Delaware County Republicans are union Republicans. The governor gets money from the union. The issue is the union power and the ability to push the Obama central agenda. The unions are the key driver of big government spending, debt and deficit, not their problem. They are the tax takers. They are Alinsky's have-nots who are taking from big business, small business. Any taxpayer is paying the unions.
And Bob, I want to make one other point just because we're a little closer to it in Pennsylvania, and you've been great about pointing this out, but the national audience may not know. You forgot to mention a certain presidential candidate from last year from Pennsylvania who is not a conservative. I just want to make sure you can make the point you made so well last year.
About Mitt Romney?
No, the one from Pennsylvania who wears a lot of sweater vests.
The big government right winger.
Yeah.
The pro-life statist. Rick Santorum was was a union Republican, big time. Like Arlen Specter. Arlen Specter was a big time Philadelphia union Republican. Both were supported by the union Republicans, and that was the key to Rick Santorum, a great deal of Rick Santorum support. Unfortunately, he's the former senator because enough people didn't like his social issues, but basically the Republican base, what you might call the social conservatives, realized that he was also a statist. And when that was exposed, what a statist was, and this is a top Republican, he was in Republican Senate leadership, he was close to the president. It showed how the Republican Party is a big government statist party as well. And Rick Santorum goes around flying the flag on the social issues too, distracting away from the fact
Exactly.
spending more money than we can afford to spend. It's not a question of whether it's a good thing. Adam, it may be a great thing for you to have a new car. You can't afford it. Same at the state level, it's very clear, and we're borrowing and borrowing more money. Who pays for this? Who pays for this deferred taxation? The more money that is pulled out of the private sector from the tax makers, from the creative people who actually are productive and make real things in the real world that we really use, the more that goes to the government, the less productivity, the lower our standard of living. And the unions are the key drivers of that. They view themselves as for the little guy and the have-nots. You should see what the union organizers make, but let's say they are if they're not the 1%, they're certainly the 2%.
Well, Bob,
they're doing very well, and this is the driving issue. The focus has to be on spending and on the union support for Republicans and purging the Republican Party, particularly in South Pennsylvania, of union influence.
Bob, you've made some great points here, and I want people actually to listen to them, so I don't want this podcast to be much more than 11 or 12 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'm sure we'll be talking very soon again. I've been talking to Bob Guzzardi, Southeast Pennsylvania advocate for the forgotten taxpayer. He's a blogger and grassroots activist, conservative reformer, and if you want to find more about him, go to thelibertyblog.org. Bob, thanks for your time today.